Hey guys, welcome to a new broadcast here for the Game Dev Hub. In the past I went over just a quick tutorial on, and well, not that quick, it was like 30 minutes, but a basic overview on controllers in Maya. So I'm going to do something a little bit different for this video. I'm going to do, actually I'm going to do a Python tutorial. And it's actually kind of a Python slash scripting tutorial. I'll go over some basic concepts. This will get you started with Python right away. So first, some quick things about Python. Python is it's an interpreted language. And if you're new to programming, which I expect you to be if you're watching this beginner tutorial, it means that it's not actually compiled. The computer actually, how should I put it? There's languages like C#, C++, which need to be compiled, meaning you need a couple of things. You need a compiler and you need an editor. So the editor is where you write your code. The compiler puts it into machine code or object code so the computer can interpret that. Python is an interpreted language, so it actually requires an interpreter which does that for you on the fly. And that's kind of one of the differences that you would consider between a scripting language and a programming language. Python is also considered a glue language, meaning it's good for attaching functionality to other applications. You generally wouldn't write entire programs in Python, meaning game engines and stuff like that. But Python is still a very important language to know because of its functionality as a glue language. Also because it's very easy to learn the principles of object-oriented programming. So I'll get a little bit more into what all this stuff actually means as I go along. I'm just giving you a brief overview of what we're going to look at. So if you're lost at this point, that's totally fine. So the first thing you want to do is actually get Python. It's not something that's already installed on a Windows computer. If you're on something like Linux or even OS X or Mac, you can run this off your terminal. You just click, you type in Python, and that puts you into Python interpreter. And then you can run all these commands as you can in this interpreter here. I'm going to show you where to get it. You just go to download, and there's the different versions you can get. There's an OS X installer, but again, this is for Python with the idle interface and all that stuff. And I'll show you what that is. But like you can go into the terminal, it's already there because it's in the Unix terminal. And Linux, same thing, terminal, you can go in there and run it natively. Alrighty, so Python, don't worry about these other ones. You can just download the 2.7 version is what I'm going to be going over. 3.2, fairly new. And there are some key differences, but 2.7 is the most common version, and you'll find a lot of libraries are written for 2.7. And haven't been ported into 3.2, aren't fully implemented, so we will stick to 2.7. You can download the installer here, x86 to 64, or just get the regular one, the binary. It's up to you. When you install it, you're going to be able to use either the interpreter or the editor that comes with it. So if I go to Python here on my start menu, you have idle, which is the Python graphical user interface. That just means, the actual program that you see here. This is your interpreter. It's a shell. Actually interprets the commands that you give it in Python. And you actually get a command line too, which is right here. And then let's see. I think it comes with documentation file. Python manuals right here, and you can install it. Alrighty. So a couple of things. I don't use the command line here. I use idle interpreter, the Python shell, and the cool thing about it is that it runs directly with its own editor. So when you click new, it's going to open a new editor window. So you have a new window. This editor window is kind of like Notepad, really. It's just you put the text into it, but it has some added functionality. When you're programming, there's something called syntax highlighting, which is very important, and it recognizes certain things about the language that are built into it, and it highlights them in different colors, or it will highlight, like for example, variables in different colors and functions and stuff like that. And I'll go over what these things are. So that's why we use this. And the good thing is that when you want to run your script, so it lets you save a script and then have it run into your interpreter, so it feeds it straight to it. So I'm going to get started here with a very simple, and it's very common for when you're learning programming to go over the Hello World tutorial first. So you notice in Python, it's actually pretty straightforward. I'm going to do this in the interpreter first. So when you want Python to print something onto the screen, this is just going to get a message out there. All you have to do is type print, and then you put into parentheses the message you want to say, and you want to use quotation marks as well. So if I wanted to print hello world, there you go, it prints back hello world. Awesome. Now, unlike other languages, one thing to keep in mind when you're writing Python is that it is white space sensitive. It actually works based on indents and line breaks to understand. Other languages, you'll notice there's stuff like function, foo, whatever, and it has these brackets, and then, if you have different statements, you will say, statements, comma, or sorry, semicolon. This is what a traditional C based language looks like, or C-like language. You have a function, you have the statements, and they're ended with the semicolon, and anything that's part of this block or the function is inside of these braces, the curly braces. Python is a lot more readable and a little more intuitive, so it saves you a lot more keystrokes. It makes it actually a lot quicker to type. So when you want to do something, you would define, for example, define foo, so you're defining a function, and you use colon, and then you leave anything that is indented underneath that one level will be part of that block. So statement, you'll notice there is no semicolon. No semicolon. So everything that's indented, and if you wanted, for example, another like a nested function, like an if statement or something. So if you're lost at this point, that's okay. This is going to become fairly clear to you. If something, and then it indents it for you. That's what idle does. Otherwise, you'd have to indent yourself. Just tab. Keep in mind that tab and space is not the same thing. So if you tab something, which is like 5 spaces, and you try to use 5 spaces, it will not be the same thing in most interpreters. It will, even though it's the same amount of space, it's just one of those weird things. Alrighty, so back to what we're doing. Hello world. So I did this in the interpreter. That's all nice, but I want to save it as a script, something that I can use multiple times and just execute whenever I need it, instead of having to type it out every single time. So what I do here is I create a in this file. I'm going to save it as a Python file, and I'm going to run it straight from the script. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to say print hello world and close it, and that's it. So I'm doing the exact same thing, except when I save this, and let's see here, I'm going to make a new folder here to save it in. I'm going to call it hello world.py. .py is the extension for Python files. Very important that you name it that way, otherwise the editor, you may run into issues with other editors besides the idle one that won't know that it's a Python file. I'm pretty sure this saves it automatically anyway, but just good practice. Alrighty, so now I have the script and I want to run it. Well, I just go up here, it says run, and I go to run module, or I can hit the hotkey, which is what I prefer, F5, and then I can run this script as many times as I want. I don't have to type it out. So in essence, what you've done here is you've written a small script. It basically has one command, which is to print, and it does it as many times as you need it to. And this is a very basic principle in programming. Another cool thing about this idle editor is that it'll let you know when there's errors in your syntax, and it won't let you really execute it. But let's see here. Let's make this a little more interesting. Let's take some input from the user. So I'm going to get rid of this hello world line here. So I want it to print your name now. So it's going to ask you first for your name, then it's going to print it back out. So to do that, we need to go over the concept of variables. Variables are basically containers. Without getting too technical, a variable, think of it as something like a container, and a container of a different shape. So different containers hold different things. If you have a bowl, it might be used to hold fluids or liquids. Maybe little baggies would be for, well, I don't know what you put in your baggies, but maybe sandwiches. It just depends. So that's kind of a similar concept in programming or in Python. You don't really have to worry so much about the type of container. Python handles that for you, but you do need to understand what it does. So in this case, I would make a variable called The way you declare a variable in Python is you just say the name of it, which is the name, equals, and I'm going to set it to nothing. Right now my variable equals nothing. So what I'm saying is that whenever I call name, I'm actually referring to what's inside of it, which is in this case a blank line. Now, what is important here is that even though Python will know what variable it is, you need to remember what kind it is. In this case, we're making a string. And a string is just basically a set of characters, so letters, numbers, etc., which are taken literally as string. If I have numbers in here, and I try to add them, even though Python I think handles that, and we'll test, I can't remember, it doesn't actually mean that you're adding that number. It's converting it to a number first from a string and then adding it. In this case, it's a string. It's not actually a number. So this isn't worth 9,999. It's worth 9999 as these characters. And we'll get a little more into types and casting and all that kind of stuff. But for now, we're going to declare this variable. I'm going to save my scripts, run it. Okay, nothing happens because I'm not telling it to do anything. I'm just setting a variable. I'm not giving any commands. So this is how you declare a variable. Just say the name of it, equals, and what it equals. So name is the same as, let me change that. I'll say something. So whenever I want to access whatever's inside name, I go to my script, so let me run it again. So now when I print name, notice there's no quotation marks because I'm not actually printing a literal string like I was here. I'm printing whatever's inside of name, which is something. So we're getting the right response here. Alright, great. So I'm going to set this to nothing again. You can also set it to what's called null, which is no value. Oh, I'm sorry. In Python, it's none, which is no value. Sorry. It is none with a capital N. Very important. Python is case sensitive, so remember that. So none. Alright, cool.